Outside of Ethiopia, the Washington, D.C. area is home to one of the largest populations of Ethiopians in the world. As anyone might notice, Ethiopians can have an exotic appearance. It's not uncommon to see the women wearing yagalibs or Nutella after a Sunday service. Much in their culture and traditions date back thousands of years. To an outsider, it's breathtaking. In essence, they are what amounts to a migration of beauty. In their own way, they have been making their mark onto the American landscape. As you might expect, the area is exceptionally pronounced with signs of their economic progress. But for others, they wanted something more. For them, they were interested in the basic ideas that help make this country what it is today. In 1791, the Founding Fathers of the United States drafted and signed a document. It was titled the Bill of Rights. In it, certain provisions were made for the people. Among them was the right to assemble, the right to free speech and free press, the right to petition government, and the prohibition of cruel and unusual punishment. For many Ethiopians coming to the U.S., as well as many other immigrants, these are overpowering ideas. In this system, the government is restricted by law from infringing on the rights of individuals. And though far from perfect, it provides the basic mechanisms needed for recourse when grievances arise. These ideas are some of the best of what the U.S. has to offer immigrants. They were put to the test in 2005. In the course of a few days, Ethiopians quickly realized how the politics in both countries are inextricably bound.
Your attention please, the Ethiopian Airlines flight has landed. Passengers can be met shortly at the International Arrivals Area, lower level, main terminal.
For many immigrant constituencies, they're coming from countries where having the right to vote, having the right to criticize government, having the right to assemble and organize are things that they can't do. And then they come to America.
We are expecting at least over 100 taxi cab drivers working from Prince George County, and most of them are really excited to come to this meeting. My name is Abdul Kamoos. I am the Executive Director of the African Resource Center. And our main mission is to be the voice for the voiceless African refugees and immigrants in Washington metro area. I want to contribute in building this country. And the only way I could be able to do it is by bringing the concerns of my people, my community, and by fighting for justice, for equality, for human rights. And that's all about America. In America, there is a constitution. In the constitution, in the First Amendment, right, each individual, they have the right to organize. But what happened, what saddened me, 2 weeks ago, our brother here.
An important provision within the U.S. Bill of Rights is the right to assemble. It is an unusual, if not awkward, proposition for most of these drivers, who are primarily Ethiopian. Abdul Kamis has been working hard to organize and convince them they have rights they can exercise freely here in the U.S. In this meeting in Tacoma Park, Maryland, they have decided to come together to aid a colleague who was fired for suspicion of organizing a union. Abdul has enlisted the help of Juan Carlos, an activist who specializes in rallying the troops. For most of these drivers, it's not within their culture to openly fight back. Today, however, they will.
Well, I would like, thank you, good afternoon. I don't hear you, good afternoon. Come on, let's stand up. Let me hear you. Good afternoon. All right. Why are you standing up? Let me see, where's the standing up? We are here together. Today, you are making history. You are making history for your communities, for your families, for your country. Because when my grandmother told me one day, I always said to people, I don't want to walk in my knees. Before you see me walking in my knees, I better die fighting for my freedom. There is true. There is a Bob out there. There is true that somebody is abusing you up there. But there is also true that you are tired and fed up of this Bob. It's also truth that you are here together because you want your rights. You want your freedom. Who can vote? Raise your hands. We can make a change if we work together. You have the power to vote. And those people in the county council should know that you have the power to vote. Should know that you are willing to drop your blood and put your money to make sure that you can have your freedom and that you can really make things change in that county. Because in other cities, taxi drivers organize themselves that they did it. If they do it, if they did it, can you do it? Can you do it? I can hear you. Can you do it? Yeah. Can you do it? Yeah. Can you do it? Yeah. Together. Yeah. Together. Yeah. Like a brothers and sisters, together. Yeah.
When I was growing up in Ethiopia in 1960s, we were demonstrating in front of high school as well as in front of Haile Selassie First University in Addis Ababa. And most of my friends were shot, and I was in prison as well. And in Ethiopia, where we had no democracy, where we had no freedom, and when you speak up for truth and for justice and for human rights, you could easily get arrested or shot and killed.
After formally presenting their grievances to the owner of the taxi company, Abdul was able to get the fired driver his job back. For Abdul, the victory was in proving to them that it could be done at all. tragic outcome of the 2005 Ethiopian national election has alarmed much of the diaspora. In particular, Ethiopian Americans have decided to come together and enlist the help of U.S. Congressman Donald Payne. Perhaps the biggest issue they came to discuss is his pending Ethiopian Human Rights Bill, H.R. 2003. It is of particular interest to one woman who came to lend her support.
My name is Ababa Fakade. I'm a neuropsychologist. I have a consulting practice serving the population, the immigrant population and the general population. If we enjoy human rights here, and if it's good enough for us here, there is no reason that it's not good for other people and for other countries, and especially for Ethiopia. What comes before anything? What comes before the US? What comes before the Ethiopian government? What comes before any pride or anything is our humanity. That needs to be respected. As human beings, Ethiopians need to live having the basic rights fulfilled. We're not asking the intervention of American government in the business of our country. That's not what we are asking. We are asking clearly, this bill will allow the US government not to support a government that is abusing human rights.
As it was indicated, next week we will be introducing H.R. 2003. Currently we have 72 co-sponsors. The bill is a bill to try to help the country of Ethiopia, to try to strengthen the institutions, to try to assist in USAID projects on the Nile. However, we are also saying that political prisoners must be released from prison.
The truth is what matters. The truth is Ethiopians are not living like human beings. And let's make them live like human beings. And you do that by providing basic human right. And if that basic human right is not granted in the way that we wanted, we ask for our government to respect it, it's not respecting. So what we're saying is, we're not asking them to make them respected, we're saying stop supporting them.
Dr. Ababa's road to political freedom was a long and difficult one. Today, she works as a psychologist, counseling people with issues ranging from post-traumatic stress to marriage problems. Her journey began with a secret meeting in the Ethiopian town of Dessie in 1975. It escalated into a nightmarish run for her life with a dear friend, deep in Ethiopia's countryside. To an outsider, the capital of Addis Ababa in the early 1970s might appear as a sleepy town, but something horrible had taken Ethiopia into its grip, something that would result in horrific consequences for the country's future. In 1975, the country was controlled by a military council called the Derg. They thrust themselves into power in response to tremendous national concern over famine and economic unrest. The Derg was comprised of low-ranking officers and enlisted men. Essentially, it was led by a calculating and ambitious lieutenant colonel named Mengistu Haile Mariam. What began as a desperate attempt to change a government that was unresponsive to the people degenerated into military dictatorship. Realizing that the government was not going to relinquish power, groups like the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Party, or EPRP, organized protests in the streets. As the EPRP lost faith in the regime, they started to openly demand a broad-based, democratically run government. Eventually, their demands escalated into armed insurgency. But Mengistu had a strategy to deal with counter-revolutionaries. By throwing bottles of what was purported to contain human blood, he kicked off what became known as Kai Shibir, or the Red Terror. What followed was one of the darkest chapters of Ethiopian history.
People would walk over dead bodies as they walked to work or walked out of their places. They would have cases where I remember going back home where one of my mother's friend had her child killed by government troops, and she couldn't even mourn because that would be considered reactionary, so she had to hide, and my mother and some friends had to knock on her door in the middle of the night bringing gifts to comfort her. You couldn't even weep. She said the worst thing was you can't even mourn your dead. That's how cruel they could be.
Thousands lost their lives. It is widely considered to be the 7th worst genocide in human history. One young woman who fought the Derg and was a member of the EPRP was Ababa Fakadi. Often they would hold clandestine meetings in the neighborhoods or kabelis within the city. Dr. Ababa's journey began with one such meeting in Dessie.
It was 9 o'clock in the morning. The meeting was supposed to begin. We were in a house. In that meeting, one of the persons who's supposed to be a member of the group, in fact, was an agent from the government. We were in a back room when the door was, someone at the door was knocking on. The person who opened the door, who was the owner of the house, was arrested that same day. And those other men who were mostly teachers, they have children, they're, have a family and all of that. And they, I think most of them were killed at that moment.
After jumping out of a window, Ababa was able to escape from Dessie with a fellow EPRP member, Almes Tedessi. The two young women embarked on a horrific run through the countryside, staying in safe houses whenever it was possible. They found themselves being hunted like wild animals, with the Mengistu security forces sometimes just minutes behind them. Finally, they agreed they should separate and try to go further into the countryside. On one fateful day, Almes decided to ride a bus, while Ababa took other means. She found out what happened to her friend months later.
I learned later what happened to her, but of course she got caught by the police force and was brutally killed, like most Ethiopian kids at that time, being, thrown their bodies out in the street and so forth. So she was one of the victims of that moment. I have to excuse me. And of course, I learned that later, way later, after 2 years or so of my getting out of the area. And it's still very difficult to deal with her death. I made a covenant with Almaz when I came to this country and continued my education. I said, if I became a doctor, I'll go to Africa, or if I can go to Ethiopia, somewhere in this world I will help people, because that's why she died. I keep her very dear, and I keep her alive as I continue to struggle for human rights and equality among people and all those issues.
I do remember when I was a student back in Ethiopia, my friends were shot down and killed under Mengistu Haile Mariam, and I don't want to see anybody killed and dying in front of their homes. And I have seen in 1970s, before I left my country, under the Red Terror, young boys and girls, their bodies were thrown in front of their home, and they were telling their parents not to pick them up unless they pay bullet money. I have a very close friend whom I grew up playing soccer in Addis Ababa. He was shot and killed, and his family, they have to pay blood money to get his body from the government.
And this was just for doing?
Just for advocating on behalf of the poor. The only way we could be able to survive, the only way we could be able to grow, when we have democratic society based on justice, equality, and freedom, when we are able to elect our officials, when we are able to build democracy, where people have voices, where people have different opinions. If you don't like my opinion, you don't need to kill me, or you don't need to send me to jail. And you have to be able to convince me. And in a very polite manner, in a very dignified way, we could disagree. For me, coming as a refugee from Africa, Statue of Liberty with torch up, rising and shining across the country, is a symbol of freedom. It gives you that freedom that you can do anything that you want. It gives you a new fresh air, a new start, a new beginning for your life. And sometimes, as a refugee, as an immigrant, you carry your own baggage back about home.
There was that sense of relief that you're not being chased right this moment. When someone knocks on the door, you're scared, you're startled. Someone is looking for you. They come to get you. They come to get you. That is the feeling you have for a long time. It's okay to be arrested or killed. You're done. But to live under a state of fear all the time, and watching your mouth, you cannot say anything that the government doesn't like, so you have no idea which one they like and which one they don't like. So that means you are, to me, to your question, you're not alive. You cannot be a full-fledged living being.
Taxi drivers who work in Washington, D.C. have become upset over an impending D.C. residency requirement law. Most of them live outside of the city in the suburbs of Virginia and Maryland. Their livelihoods have been threatened. Abdul has decided to stage a large protest outside of City Hall. But first he plans to lead them directly into the building to actively advocate to city council members. He hopes to convince them to support an amendment that would grandfather the drivers into the new law. They now know that they must fight in order to save their jobs.
And they are already start parking here, and we are seeing more people are coming, and that will be a wonderful day. Not only that, sunny day, and we are saying, we as immigrants coming to this country, between the White House here on my left and the Congress on my right side, in the middle we have City Council, we are advocating on behalf of our people. I mean, this is democracy, that we have to cherish. I'm telling you, I'm so happy, guys. This is our fight.
Yeah.
Today we're gonna win.
Sure.
It's an emergency, inshallah, we're gonna win.
Yeah.
It's an emergency hearing, we're gonna win.
Abdul has been working with Ward 1 Council member Jim Graham to get the grandfathering amendment drafted. The council member has been resolute in supporting their cause.
This is not really fair. It's not fair for taxi cab drivers who've been driving for the last 20 years. Suddenly, the city is telling them, you don't have a business here, and we are supporting small businesses. They are small business owners, and they are owners and operators, and we want them to stay here in D.C.
Hundreds of taxi drivers are massing outside the building, presenting a virtual taxi work stoppage for the city.
Mr. Chairman, they're here in the chambers. They're also on Freedom Plaza. They're all over this building today, and it's great to see such a show of strength and interest and dedication in the work of this government, and I congratulate all of you for coming here today. Thank you.
In the spring of 2005, the eyes of the world were on Ethiopia. Throughout the diaspora, there was excitement. Ethiopia was going to have its first true democratic election in history. For those forced to leave the country because of political or economic conditions, it was a tantalizing prospect. It offered the best possibility so far of going home to start a new life. This could be the fulfillment of a dream for many of them. It was a dream that would tragically go up in smoke. Back in the United States, Ethiopian Americans were watching the election closely. The atmosphere was charged with ideas of democracy and free elections. Professor Alamayu Mariam, a law professor, recalls the excitement that embraced the diaspora.
There was open public debate, there was free access to the media, people were talking politics, they could organize freely, they can discuss issues and so on. It was really a dynamic political process leading up to the election. And it was really, truly an exciting time. And of course, on election day, the massive voter turnout, in excess of 90% of all of the registered voters showed up at the polls, oftentimes waiting for many, many hours to cast their ballots and things of that sort. So there was this electrifying atmosphere in the air. And
we were following minute by minute, of course, because as you say, our, sometimes our body is here in our, our mind, our soul is elsewhere.
The ruling party, known as the EPRDF, was led by Prime Minister Meles Zenawi. In 2005, he was preparing his party for the election of a lifetime. They gained power in 1991 after ousting the communist dictator Mengistu Haile Mariam. The EPRDF had been in power for 14 years.
Everybody was upbeat. There was a positive vibrations where all individuals, those who were party members or not, those who were committed to civic and civil societies, those who wanted a democratic society in Ethiopia, were really focused in saying that now we're going to have a free election.
The opposition party, known as the CUDP, or Kanajit Party, was led by Halu Shol, who was a management consultant by profession. Challenging and beating the EPRDF in an election seemed daunting to most. Halu Shol recalls how non-Ethiopian colleagues responded to him after he told them he was going to run against them.
They always, wry smiles on their faces. And, come on, they don't say it to my face, but then they turn around and say to the Haile is crazy. What does he think? A government with all the guns, a government with all the control, the land, the money, everything. How can he win this election? They just had given us up completely that we will never get close because there was big money on the other side and nothing on our side except the people.
The polling stations opened up at 6 a.m. The turnout was nothing short of spectacular. Record lines of excited Ethiopians began queuing up throughout the country.
At one point, I had to go out and get something out of the truck. By this time, it was 6:30 in the morning, sun up. And without thinking anything about what was going to be outside the door, I just stepped out. And I realized instantly, in a fraction of a second, that nothing in the country would ever be the same again. Outside, waiting patiently in the dawn light with the sun shining on their white robes, were hundreds and hundreds of Ethiopians, thousands, in a line that stretched, as far as I could see, a quarter of a mile down the street. And it was an amazing sight. All of these people just lined up waiting to come in and vote. I felt very good about the future of the country right then. And I thought that that was really a turning point.
All Ethiopians all Ethiopians, one could say, the young, the old, the bedridden, all across Ethiopia, not only in urban centers like Addis, Redhawa, or Jijjiga, or Bahar Dar, or Mekelle. Everybody was, there was a high turnout that was unprecedented in other countries, Europe as well as in other African countries, close to 90 plus and something at least. All the media giants were there, and they were saying, look at Ethiopia, Ethiopia being a model for democracy for all other African countries.
When I saw those lines, I said, oh, the Ethiopian people are going to talk. If they talk, the government loses. That much I knew. But I never thought for one moment that this group will ever relinquish power. Even from the beginning, I never thought of that. Not because I saw the people. From the beginning, I know they will not relinquish power. But we say we have to show that the Ethiopian people are ready for democracy.
As record-breaking numbers of voters poured into the ballot stations, Ana Gomez, the chief election observer for the European Union, started to get concerned about the counting process. Her and her team of 200 observers felt there was nowhere near enough information to determine the outcome, even days later.
We were so worried that we even issued a communique, a statement, a press release, saying how we were so worried, because at that time, for instance, we knew, because were in daily contact with the National Election Commission, that the National Election Commission had no data at all. We had more data coming from all over the country than they had through our observers.
But by 3 o'clock, I was in the office till 3 o'clock, collecting all the data. It was clear we have won Addis. I mean, it was, I think, out of the 23 districts in Addis, by 3 o'clock I knew we have won 20. It was over, and we are winning all of it. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, for in every district, the election was 6 local council people for the city council and 1 for parliament.
It was apparent the CUDP had won the capital city, but the provincial ballots hung in the balance. There was some dispute as to which way it would go.
People in the cities have a hard time putting themselves in the shoes of a rural peasant, particularly of one of the southern nationalities. But those people have a completely different take on everything, and they vote differently.
I knew that they didn't win the countryside because we were much stronger in the countryside. We were sure we were going to win. And I was so surprised, I said, I just want to wait for what the observers are going to say.
What happened next would be the beginning of a firestorm of controversy. By mid-evening the next day, the EPRDF went on national television and declared themselves to be the winners. Tension began to escalate because the votes were still being counted, and the European Union election observers made it clear that there simply wasn't enough data to call it.
At that time, when the Prime Minister came out on the television, announced that EPRDF has won the majority of the seats and will continue as government, I said to myself, come on, who counted it? Where did he get this information? He has to back out. He can't do this.
Back in the U.S., Ethiopian Americans were shocked as their expectations and hopes gradually slipped into despair. Suspicions ran high.
The international observers who were there were saying, well, still votes are being counted. What's going on? I think what had happened at that point was that Zenawi realized that he had lost the election, and somehow he had to bring a quick stop to it. And so he sort of intercepted the process and declared victory, and that set off a whole set of events.
Sensing that a democratic election was wrestled from their grasp, unarmed protesters took to the streets. What began as one of the most promising moments in Ethiopian history would eventually capitulate into national tragedy. The government responded by brutally cracking down as the diaspora watched in horror.
They said, well, it is our right to come out and protest peacefully to show our dissatisfaction. with the outcome of the election and so on. I doubt if many of them really had this idea that they're going to be mowed down like grass by security forces. They probably would have had second thoughts and so on.
የጸጥታ አስከባሪ ኃይሎች በሙሉ በአንድ እዝ ስር ገብተው ተጠሪነታቸው ለጠቅላይ ሚኒስትሩ እንዲሆን ተደርጓል። ከነገ ጀምሮ ለአንድ ወር ሰልፍና ከቤት ውጭ የሚደረግ ህዝባዊ ስብሰባ የተከለከለ መሆኑን በዚህ አጋጣሚ ለማሳወቅ ወዳለሁ። የህዝቡን ውሳኔ በትዕግስትና በጸጋ ለመቀበል ባለመፈለግ ይህን መመሪያ ተላልፎ በሚገኝ ክፍል ላይ የጸጥታ አስከባሪ ኃይሎች ጥብቅ እርምጃ እንዲወስዱ መመሪያ ተላልፏል።
We condemn the killing, the massacre, the massacre.
Abdul's taxi drivers take to the streets to challenge a pending residency requirement law. Under the U.S. Bill of Rights, they have the right to peacefully assemble and to openly petition government. The degree of a particular issue's importance is immaterial. It's the actual right itself that has profound significance to them.
Justice for cab drivers! 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 Justice for workers!
The D.C. council members backed down and wrote them a grandfathering clause to protect their jobs.
One of the reasons why I decided to become a lawyer is because I was really fascinated by the Bill of Rights. That somehow Americans were able to define the relationship between the citizens and government, and they decided early on at the inception of the Republic and said, you know, we distrust government so much that we're going to have some specific bars about what it can and cannot do to the citizens. And so in the First Amendment, for instance, they said Congress shall make no laws, and they told Congress the kinds of laws that it cannot enact. Basically laws having to do with, that interfere with the exercise of individual liberty and things of that sort. And suddenly now you find out that in America there are these laws that say the government works for you, the government is not at war with you, you are in fact the boss of the government. And that was, to me, supremely inspiring.
Conclusions between the two largest election observing teams on the ground, the Carter Center and the European Union, were miles apart. It was unsettling to many how both teams observed the same election, and yet were in tremendous disagreement over the results. The Carter Center assessed that the majority of the constituency results were credible and reflected competitive conditions. On the other hand, the European Union had issues with the counting process. They also fielded reports of EPRDF intimidation of opposition supporters. This included threats against their lives, beatings, presence of militia, and arrest. It was deemed enough to affect the overall legitimacy of the election. The Carter Center did not respond to repeated requests for an interview.
The security of democracy, the security of the system of liberties, there was a huge threat to that, and more. I have very little doubt that this was the case, and I don't think there are too many, at least not too many, who lived in Ethiopia during those times, who will claim that the kind of danger that was looming, a kind of a darkness descending upon us, would be categorized in terms, could be characterized in terms that didn't state the stakes in these terms.
Addis Ababa appears to be under siege. The crackdown was devastating. Government troops have staked themselves outside of CUDP leader Halu Schol's house. So has the foreign press.
Who are you? Who are you? Can I see your identification, please? Hello. Hello. Good morning. Good morning. I'm Fidel Pulse.
Good. Nice to meet you.
Huh?
Camera.
I'm not supposed to give you my cameras.
It's forbidden.
It's forbidden what?
Where's the sign?
We have, wait.
This is the way of government.
Wait. We have our accreditation.
I'm the Danish ambassador. I am the
Diplomatic
ambassador of
immunity.
Denmark.
It's diplomatic.
You can't touch a diplomat.
Yeah, may I show you my ID? May I show you my ID? May I show you my ID? Ambassador of Denmark.
Eventually, all the leaders of the opposition party were arrested and sent to the infamous Kalidi prison. 193 people were shot and killed by government troops, and now they were being charged with attempted genocide. In addition, thousands of protesters were rounded up throughout the country and incarcerated. All news reporting contrary to the government's version of events was halted. Owners of publications that resisted were arrested and imprisoned. The ruling party dug in and braced itself for the pressure it would soon feel thousands of miles away in the U.S.
Call the meeting of the Subcommittee on Africa and Global Health.
The Ethiopian government is far from perfect. However, they have shown a willingness to move in a positive direction. And I'm concerned that the passage of this bill as it is currently written will do more harm than good to the Ethiopian democratic movement and will hurt our strategic partnership with Ethiopia in combating terrorism. I'm also concerned that it may have a negative effect on the current negotiations between the government and the opposition. I believe that this bill, as currently drafted, has a number of shortcomings that must be addressed. And by failing to do so, we may be inadvertently undermining the very principles of democracy and human rights that this well-meaning, well-intentioned piece of legislation seeks to advance.
As I think you know, Mr. Chairman, I visited Ethiopia and met with Prime Minister Meles and urged him to investigate the atrocity, to punish those responsible, and to release the political prisoners. And when I visited with Meles the first time, asked him, what are you doing to investigate these massive numbers of deaths of people who are out there clamoring for democracy? We know that the election was egregiously flawed. Despite that, the opposition did extremely well. They would have done much better, but there were flaws. For that, they got bullets, and they got killed, they got clubbed. And we were saying investigate and hold those people responsible. We got none of that. As a matter of fact, that's when he went into this tirade with me about how he has dossiers on everybody. And he's there, I could throw them all in prison for treason. Wei Jingsheng, the great human rights democracy wall leader who spent years in the Gulag, I had him testify when he was finally given a parole. He was next to death. And when he was well enough, he came and testified. And he said, contrary to what many of you in the West think, but when you are nice and placate dictatorship, they beat us more. When you draw a line in the sand and say, as this bill does, we mean business. There are going to be sanctions. You're not going to be able to travel.
Ethiopian Americans have been the primary driving force behind H.R. 2003. This has put the Ethiopian government at odds with a politically empowered diaspora. The ambassador of Ethiopia, Sanyo Asefa, believes the bill has no merits and is essentially reckless to the Ethiopian people.
The H.R. 2003 approach basically is, this is the idea, well, why do you talk to government? Just go to Congressman X, Y, and Z. Make sure that a few hearings are held. Make sure you exert enough pressure. And even if it has no merits, which it of course does not have, and so that whole approach, I think, is the wrong way of using this newfound power, the lobby power. It's still not so sophisticated, and one is still groping for ways of trying to use it responsibly. But we stand out here as a community that is using it systematically to ends that are suspect.
There are no amendments to the legislation. Therefore, the question occurs on the motion to report the bill H.R. 2003 favorably. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion is approved and the bill is reported favorably. Thank you.
Imagine, some Greek writer.
The Ethiopian government has agreed to have someone negotiate for the release of the opposition party leaders. In Ethiopian tradition, such a person is called Shemigali, a neutral elder who settles disputes in a peaceful way. Dr. Ephraim Isaac has been making numerous trips to Ethiopia with the goal of getting the CUDP leadership released. All the while, anger from the Ethiopian Americans has been intense.
I feel personally very optimistic when the leaders of Ethiopia now are saying we respect our tradition and we will operate on the basis of our tradition. Whether we like it or not, we have to give this leadership some credit. We have to give, and we have to give our friends who are also in prison some credit for respecting our tradition, for saying we have a culture, we stand on that culture, and we respect that culture, and let's move forward. So my dear friends, it is time now when we have to stop. We have to say stop. We have to decide. Stop bad-mouthing each other politically. That if every one of us plays a role to talk to our friends who have some kind of wound in their hearts, who have some kind of bitterness, who have some kind of anger.
Besides working as point man for the negotiations, Dr. Ephraim has been lobbying to stop the progress of H.R. 2003 in the U.S. House of Representatives. He believes the bill directly interferes with Ethiopia's sovereignty.
The United States has a lot of its own problems, and I wish the United States Congress concentrates on that. I personally, as an Ethiopian, I read and I understand what the United States Congress is trying to do, but I myself focusing on what the Ethiopian Parliament is doing. In the Christian Bible too, it says, if you give money with your right hand, let not your left hand know. If the United States kindly gives us money, we appreciate it very, very highly. Someday, if there is a problem in the United States, I hope during the new millennium, we'll also give money. But when it comes to giving, and then saying to me, I'm giving you this money and I want to sit upon your head, that is not giving. That is not generosity. That is colonialism. That is unacceptable to me.
The whole idea that somehow the sovereignty of Ethiopia is undermined because it's receiving aid contingent upon improvements on human rights and so on is nonsensical, because if in fact you want to preserve and maintain the integrity of your sovereignty, then you shouldn't accept any aid whatsoever. You can't accept $500 million from the American taxpayer and say, well, we'll do whatever the hell we want to do with it, and you can't tell us anything about how we use that aid. You want to practice your own democracy, then don't ask the American taxpayer to support you in your mispractice of democracy, in your suppression of your population, in your massacres.
In the year 2005 itself, Ethiopia received $7 million through the U.S. Foreign Military Financing Funding Program. The money was to be used for purchasing U.S.-made weapons and services. The amount of money Ethiopia received through the program was almost equal to the amount received the 2 previous years combined. When Ethiopia became a member of the Coalition of the Willing, it had become a vital ally to the U.S. in the war on terror. After that, the money seemed to flow almost without question. From the very beginning, the position of the Bush administration has been that the war on terror trumps all other concerns, including issues of democratic process and human rights. However, this approach has been at odds with Ethiopian Americans. The Ethiopian government has responded to H.R. 2003 by making accusations of sovereignty infringement. But the Meles Zenawi government is far from willing to say thanks but no thanks. Instead, they have spent a massive amount of money to fight the legislation. They have hired one of the biggest law and lobbying firms in the world, DLA Piper. According to Department of Justice documents, the Ethiopian government agreed to pay the firm $50,000 per month for their services. DLA Piper formed a formidable lobbying team which included former Democratic Majority Leader Dick Gephardt and former House Republican Majority Leader Dick Armey. Together with 11 other lobbyists, they began attacking the legislation.
No lobbyist has come to discuss it with me because there wasn't anything for me to discuss with them. And so I think that it is unfortunate that money is diverted that could really go to improve the hospital, or perhaps hire a few more school teachers, or to open up a feeding center, rather than spend money trying to influence government officials and elected officials here in the United States.
They spend so much money lobbying to give this image of who they are to the government, so they can be, to the U.S. government, so they can be supported. And that's really upsetting in a way. When they're supporting a government like Ethiopia, who spend $50,000 a month and more, huge amount of money is spent to, the only purpose is to keep them in power. And what makes me wonder is, what do they need, our congressmen who miss this? What do they need to see? What is it that they're missing, really, because it is so apparent, it is so clear. You don't need to investigate. Here are people being killed.
The opposition party leaders were confined in prison for 20 months. Dr. Ephraim and other negotiators worked feverishly to broker a deal for their release. In the end, they agreed to sign a statement of apology, though they did not admit criminal wrongdoing. Halu Shaw recalls how he responded to the government's repeated insistence that he sign the statement.
I said no. Continuously until the end, I said no. I am not going to sign this paper because I have no responsibility, none whatsoever. Finally, their trick was, look at all those young people who supported you, they are in prison. They will die in prison. They are young people with a future. How can you do this? I said, all of us knew what was coming when we went into this struggle. But those young people didn't know what was coming to them. So if I resisted, I'm sacrificing them. I have lived enough in my life, but those young people haven't. So I said, are you able to have those young people released if I sign this paper? Ephraim said yes, and the others said yes. And so I signed.
Being in prison limits you in every aspect of your life. Even the floor is too low, the light is not very limited power, and everything is in a very diminishing manner, you know. But of course, our spirit and our thinking capacity is always high, and our goal and our ideals are always in our mind. That were the things which kept us strong and alive.
After almost 2 years of incarceration, they were released on July 20th, 2007. For most of them, it was a bittersweet moment. Even though they won their freedom, the story was far from over for Ethiopian Americans. The crackdown pulled them together unlike anything before. Here was a diaspora population that had money and political influence, resources they could only dream about having in Ethiopia. And now they were going to use their U.S. citizenship to affect foreign policy towards their homeland.
No, they'll be disciplined. ምን መሰለህ ከኦፊሰሩ ጋር ያነጋገርነው እዛ ጋር ኮሚኒቲ ሊደርስ ምናምን እናደርጋለን። Any minute they're gonna be coming in. Customs, I think they should be done right about now, and we expect that they will be here.
USA. Support the democratic movement in Ethiopia. USA. Support the democratic movement in Ethiopia. USA. Stop financing. Stop supporting the dictatorial regime in Ethiopia. USA.
Part of what the democratic process is about is really what the relationship is between those who govern and those who are governed. Even in a parliamentary system, there is that relationship that government cannot exercise unbridled power. Government cannot exercise arbitrary powers and so on. That there is this idea of the rule of law. What is the rule of law? I mean, people talk about it, but the rule of law simply means that there is a standard by which everybody is held accountable. Everybody, including the prime minister, whoever it is, that person will be held accountable. The one thing that Zenai's regime fears the most is accountability. Okay, accountability at the polls, accountability, internal accountability for corruption, accountability. That's what Zenawi is terrified about.
Good morning, everybody. What a glorious day the Lord has made.
Our diaspora people need to learn more about our culture. I respect their intent. I respect their great desire to help Ethiopia. But we should not throw the baby with the bathwater. They should not think that everything that glitters is gold. Not everything that comes from the rest of the world is going to save Ethiopia. We have a lot of rich ideas. We have resources, our own national resources. Additionally, we are a very proud people. We have always respected our freedom. And that is why we became the symbol of the struggle against colonialism.
Before Dr. Alamayu can get his speech started, two members of the visiting opposition party arrived to lend support to the demonstrators.
Engineer Gulato and Dr. Haile, welcome.
The idea is we in the diaspora who are now citizens of America, because only if you're a citizen do you have real power in the system, are you a real constituency, the vote, should hold the Ethiopian government fully accountable to us. But the Ethiopian government should be made accountable to Ethiopian citizens. I don't think this is a sustainable view. There are 80 million in the country. They are not to be displaced by a few 100,000 who wish by indirect means to alter the course of events, because they are not citizens. Narrowly speaking, it's important. If they go home, they have instigated a demonstration, they go home. Others might suffer consequences, might go, if things turn violent, they engage in something that is against the law in Ethiopia, encourage others. Others will go to jail, they won't. The American embassy will be called and they'll be bailed out.
So one of the things that I believe the Zenai's ambassador talks about, that somehow the West is trying to impose its values on Ethiopia, and Ethiopia has this cultural tradition and has this unique thing, and it has to evolve its own way, and I think he calls it mature democracy or something of that sort versus aspiring democracies or something to that effect. If the regime in Ethiopia does not want American aid, that's all he has to say, and all of this argument will stop. Okay, you want to have your own democracy, that's fine. You want to do it your own way and so on and so forth. Perfectly fine. Go ahead and do it, but don't ask for American aid. If you take $500 million from the American taxpayer, and American taxpayer says human rights are very important to us, Okay, that's what defines America. That is the spirit of America, is to spread democracy and human rights and individual liberties throughout the world. That's what America is about. Then you have really no choice but to insist on the practice of those values because the taxpayer does not want his or her money to be used for purposes that violate fundamental American values.
We will not stop until we have victory. And so let me once again thank you for your support of H.R. 2003. And together, a people united can never be defeated. And we will march on to victory and dignity. Thank you all very much.
Within the Ethiopian spirit, there has always been the yearning for the arrival of a new day and what it brings. These girls greet the new year by celebrating Enkutataash. In the song, they sing about the beautiful yellow flowers, Ade Ababa, that sprout throughout the country in September. It is the beginning of things new, the beginning of a new hope. The land and culture they come from is full of things they frequently express pride in, and rightfully so. Though sometimes haunted with dire national issues, the country itself is something to see. With picturesque scenery and extremely hospitable people, Ethiopia seems to have its arms extended, offering something more than bad news. They offer to remind and teach us the importance of our humanity. Here is a people that have a tradition of collective thinking, even though there are more than 80 different tribes and languages within the country. They already possess much that is compatible with American life. In the United States, democracy flourishes best with the influx of new people. An idea that can never be complete, it is pushed and challenged by the newest arrivals, ensuring that it doesn't become stagnant in the passage of time. They remind us what America is truly about. These are our new flowers. The Ethiopian immigrants who spoke up when it mattered proved that it is possible to get issues addressed through democratic process. For them, it wasn't enough to settle into the comfort of the U.S. They wanted Ethiopians in Ethiopia to enjoy some of the same things they achieved here. It's only human to expect as much.
When we're voting on this bill and it goes through, if this is defeated, the gangsters that run Ethiopia are going to be celebrating and popping the champagne corks. And the bottom line is, they're going to believe that their lobbying efforts have paid off, and it is not. This will be seen as a defeat, and the people of Ethiopia will be upset.
Well, you see, holding off. We've been holding off for 2 years. This bill coming out again to go for some more negotiations, you're actually playing in the hands of these people we're talking about, trying to defeat the lobbyists that have been holding up this bill for the last 2 years. And it's just been frustrating time after time that every time we come up with this bill, there's some technical thing that just doesn't suit an individual.
There is great opposition to this bill. He is right, because he has done some things that obviously are not necessarily receptive, but I think they are balanced. And I think Mr. Rohrabacher's point is well taken. We must also emphasize that this language suggests that we continue to work with Ethiopia in the war on terror. They have done that, and that we want to strengthen the relationship between the United States and Ethiopia. But at the same time, we want the people to stop suffering. We are glad that they released prisoners, but we know that they can do more.
We spend $5.75 million to provide training to improve judicial system administration and independence, provide training in human rights for police, judges, prosecutors, private lawyers, and promote institutional capacity of local governments. We spend this already. That's about 5, 6, 7, it's about $10 million a year.
If we're going to depend on Ethiopia, which has been an ally of the United States for decades, for centuries, then what we ought to do is to try to strengthen that government, because they are having their troops go into places where we don't send ours. And so we're trying to say that Ethiopia has the core to once again become a democratic country. And so we're trying to strengthen the institutions.
I understand reclaiming my time. I don't see how exchanging professors of law between the two countries will do that. You're better off giving them $40 million of guns, if that's what you want to do.
Well,
I just don't see where this $40 million.
Mr. Chairman.
Unless
Would the gentleman yield?
just one moment, please. Question occurs on the Rohrabacher amendment. All in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed will say no. Clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Lantos.
I pass.
Chairman Lantos passes. Mr. Berman.
No.
Mr. Berman votes no. Mr. Ackerman.
No.
Mr. Ackerman votes no. Mr. Faleomavaenga.
No.
Mr. Faleomavaenga votes no. Mr. Payne.
No.
Mr. Payne votes no. Mr. Sherman. Mr. Sherman votes no. Ms. Watson. Ms. Watson votes no. Mr. Smith of Washington. Mr. Smith of Washington votes no. Mr. Carnahan. Mr. Carnahan votes no. Mr. Tanner. Mr. Green. Ms. Woolsey. Ms. Woolsey votes no.
Clerk will report.
On this vote, there are 17 ayes and 25 noes.
And the amendment is not agreed to. We will now move to final passage of...
Mr. Chairman?
Just one second. We will now move to final passage of this bill. Then we
Mr.
will
Chairman?
recess until the vote goes on, and then we'll return. The question occurs on the motion to authorize consideration of the bill under suspension as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the motion to report favorably is adopted.
So the group, as one of the congressmen said, the thugs in Ethiopia should not utilize the money, the tax-paying U.S. money, to promote a dictatorial regime and to kill and imprison our people.
We have a responsibility to tell our allies that they can't continue to imprison people who have a different political point of view, that they can continue to have the courts controlled by the administration. And so I think this was a great step forward.
This is the DC voting right march today. You know about that? Yeah. So as a cab driver, we have to show our support that, we are supporting the idea of having a vote for the DC residents.
Abdul tries to rally anyone who will listen about Washington, D.C. voting rights. Washington, D.C. is the only jurisdiction in the continental U.S. that has a non-voting delegate in the House of Representatives and no representation in the Senate. He knows that democracy isn't perfect, but it can change things, and it only works if you participate. It's a process that will never end.
Democracy is not free, and for democracy you have to fight for it. We have seen it. Even getting this country independence, Americans have to fight for freedom. Individuals picking up arms, and they said, we will not be ruled by kings and queens, and they stood up for their rights. I'm so mad as an American telling my colleagues in Africa or in Middle East or in Asia that we are truly building democracy in their own countries when we are neglecting in our own capital city of this country, this great country.
And of all of those who have showed us in the past, the showing up makes a difference. And so let us end the speeches and let us begin the march.
Ethiopians who came as refugees and as immigrants from Ethiopia should not be afraid to speak up. They should stand up, and unless you play, democracy will not work.
We are marching with the people of District of Columbia. We are demanding voting rights for the District of Columbia. Really, this is colonization without representation. And we want to make sure our brothers and sisters get their voting rights. And we are here supporting that fight. We're going to fight together until the victory.
በሁለንተናችን ያዋረደንን ድህነት እንደ ዜጋ የተነፈግነውን የሰው ልጅ ክብርና ነፃነት የሚገባችሁ ይህ ነው የተባልነውን ኢዲሞክራሲያዊ ስርዓት በስልጣን ለመክረም ሲባል ብቻ በግራ ቀኝ የተጎነተለውን የህዝብ አንድነት ሳይለምዱና ሳይቀበሉ ከውድቀታችን ስለምንነሳበት ከውርደታችን ስለምንወጣበት ስለመንገዱ ስለመውጫው ስለዛ ማሰብ ማለም አልሞ መተለም ተልሞ መቀመር ቀምሮ መተግበር ለኔ ከብዙ የኑሮ ጎዳናዎች ውስጥ እንዳንዱ የሚወሰድ አማራጭ በላይ ነው።